Welcome, everybody. This is the presentation on Costa's levels of thinking and questioning. My name is Rob Charlton. If you don't know that already, I'm your assistant principal here at Ramona High School. The whole purpose of this lesson that we're about to go over is to really help you as a student understand the levels of thinking that you're doing when you're learning something. And I don't just mean when you're learning something in school. I mean when you're learning something in life. It could be learning how to ride a dirt bike. It could be learning a new video game. It could be learning how to play a sport. It could be learning how to weld. It could be learning how to fix a car. It doesn't always have to be stuff that you just learn in school. So when you are learning new things, I'm going to show you that there's three levels of learning according to Costa. It's just a guy who came up with these, and how you should learn and how you should think about the learning you're doing. So when you're in class or when you're learning how to ride a dirt bike, you can think, what level of learning am I really thinking at? Am I thinking at a high level of learning or am I thinking at a very basic low level of learning? And so that's the goal of our whole presentation today. So you should have already received a paper from your teacher that looks like this. It's called the Costa's Level of Thinking, and it's got a picture of a house here. It's a three-story house. Level one, level two, level three. Okay, you're going to need a pen. If you have a highlighter with you, that would be fantastic. Uh, because we're going to mark this thing up. We're going to draw a little bit on it. We're going to circle some things. We're going to highlight some things. And I want to make sure you're ready to go. If you don't have a highlighter, pen or pencil will do. But everybody should have their own paper so they can follow along as we go through this. At the end, we're going to create something that looks a little bit like this. So hopefully you can follow along and understand as we're writing things down. If the teacher needs to pause the video at any time so that people can get caught up, that's great. No problem at all. Okay. So let's go ahead and jump in. What are the three Costas levels of thinking? There we go. Okay. So you've got level one, level two, level three. Okay. Before we even get into the three levels, what I want you to do is I want you to take these lines that are right here on your paper and make sure you can see those lines like so. And then I want you to extend them. Extend them over to the right, extend them over to the left. Okay. On this side of the house, we're going to talk about the type of thinking. We're just going to put my thinking. When I am thinking at these levels, what kinds of things am I thinking about? What kinds of things am I imagining or learning in, could be, like I said, anywhere. It could be, doesn't have to be just in class, it could be anywhere. On this side of the house over here, I want you to put what are the answers are going to be like. The answers look like. You can make a little cloud out of that. So these are the kinds of questions I'm asking myself at each of these levels, and these will be what the answers to my questions should look like when I'm thinking that way. Okay, it'll make more sense as we go along. Now, the way it works, it's not just a house for any old reason. There's a reason they made a house. How do you usually enter a house? Well, most houses, not all of them, but most houses, you have to enter on the first floor, right? So down here, let's put a little door on the first floor. Do, 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 do. Okay. Because anytime you learn something, you're always going to start at level one. Anytime you learn a new sport, if you're going to learn how to play this new video game that just came out, if you're going to learn how to make posts on a new social media site, anytime you learn something, you're always going to start at level one. And at level one, they call it gathering. But what does gathering basically mean? It means you are doing things like identifying stuff. You are defining some of the vocabulary words because everything you do in life has special vocabulary words that are associated with that learning. In a math class, you might be learning things like variable or linear. In English class, you might be learning things like prose or persuasive. In auto shop class, you're going to be learning about the coolant or the radiator. Okay, so you're going to need to learn the words. You're going to have to identify what does a radiator look like? What is a coolant? I don't know what that is. And you're going to have to describe it. Oh, coolant is a liquid and it looks like this. Or a linear equation is a line and it looks like this. So these are really basic questions. So another way to think about level one is this is where you're asking things like who? Who does this? What is this? When does this happen? And where does this happen? The who, what, where, and when. So I'm going to give you an example. In fact, I'm going to give you two examples. One example is if you're playing Minecraft. So think back if you played Minecraft before, what kinds of things did you have to learn to play Minecraft? Well, it started with the basic stuff, right? It started with what button do I push to jump? What is a block? What does coal do? Where do the mobs come from? Real basic things. How do I, not even the how really, it's just like, what is this? What is that? What's the button for this? What's the button for that? Okay, how come it turns night and then day? What am I supposed to do? What's that little bar at the bottom with the hearts on it? Those are all basic level one questions. And you got to start there. Now, you usually move through level one pretty fast, but that's where you start. Now, when you ask things like who, what, where, when, what kind of answers do you usually get? They're very basic answers. They're one word answers. So you can put over here, they're one word answers. Or they might be a short little phrase. Who was the first president of the United States? That's the question. It's level one. What's the answer? George Washington. It's one word or phrase. Okay. I'm going to give you another example. What if you are just for the first time in your life learning how to play soccer? You're going to ask basic questions. How many players are supposed to be on the field? How many teams are there? What is a goal? What is the time clock? How many halves are there? What's a fullback? What's a goalie? Those are all basic questions. Now, again, if you've been playing soccer a while, you're not staying at basic questions. You already got this stuff. But that's where you started. Okay, if you've been playing Minecraft for a long time, you're still not asking what button do I need to push to jump, but that's where you started. Okay, so the idea is that you start at level one, but you should not stop at level one. You should never just stay at level one. Okay, and when you got a three-story house, how do you get to the next level? Well, you got to take the stairs. So let's draw some stairs. And you got to go up the stairs. Okay, and when you go up the stairs, you get to level two. And for level two, we're going to draw a couple windows on our house. And why are we drawing some windows? We are drawing some windows because this is where you start to see how all this basic information goes together. Okay, so what kind of stuff are you doing at level two that you weren't doing at level one? Well, now you're starting to compare things. Okay, what's the difference between a fullback and a forward? What's the difference between the first half and the second half? Okay, or you're contrasting them. Okay, so comparing is things that are the same, contrasting is how they are different. So, what's the same about a fullback and a forward? What's different about a fullback and a forward? In Minecraft, what's the same about coal and diamonds and emeralds? What's different about coal and diamond and emeralds? You see how you're taking that basic information and now you're starting to do level two stuff with it? And the other key component of level two is that you start to explain things. Why is this happening? Why is that happening? Okay. So what kind of question do we doing? We are explaining a lot at level two. Lots of explaining going on. Okay. See if I can zoom in a little bit for all of you. There we go. So you can see a little bit better. Okay. So you're doing some explaining and you're also saying, how are things different or the same? And the biggest one, you could write this in bold letters, why? Why? You probably get that question a lot in your class. We're going to talk about that in just a second. So when you're doing level two thinking, you're starting to compare things. So, like I said, like if you're doing learning how to ride a dirt bike, like how is it different if I stand on my pedals versus if I'm sitting on the seat? How does that help me ride better? Okay. Or why would I hit the gas when I'm coming up to a hill versus why would I hit the brake when I'm coming into a turn? That's level two thinking. So what kind of answers are you going to produce? Usually your answers for level two thinking, they're about 2 to 3 sentences or one paragraph. Okay. So if you see something that says compare and contrast a linear equation from a parabola, okay, well then they're asking you to write about a couple sentences on that. If they say what is a line, well that's going to be probably a one-word answer. Or what does linear mean? Line, one-word answer. Hopefully you see the difference between a level one and a level two. Okay. We're going to get to why all of this stuff in just a second. But you shouldn't stay just at level two. Sometimes you want to go up to the top level. Now, you don't always go up to the top level, but sometimes you do. So let's draw another staircase. I'm going to go behind. See how good your drawing skills are if you can go up to the top level here. Okay. And up at the top level, that's usually where the bedroom's going to be. So we're going to put a bed up here. I'm just going to put a little bed in the corner, put a nice pillow on the bed, maybe a blanket and some sheets, something like that. Okay. Why are we putting a bed? Because at level three, this is like laying in your bed and dreaming. This is laying in your bed and thinking of these big ideas and this big stuff that's going on in your life. Okay. So what kind of big stuff are we talking about? This is where you start to judge. Start to look at things that are happening in your life and go like, that's a really good thing, and this is why. This is a really bad thing, and this is why. Or this is going to be helpful, or this is not going to be helpful, and why. These are really deep discussions you're having. This is big time topics you're thinking. You're predicting based on what I know, I think it's going to rain today, or based on what I don't know, I think that we're going to get out of school early today, or based on what I know, we're going to see this happen today, which is kind of the same as hypothesizing. You're starting to make predictions based on evidence, based on things that you're seeing, based on all the gathering and the processing that you've done before. You're starting to think of big ideas. You're starting to use your imagination. You're starting to think of big concepts, big ideas, how this all goes together, explaining how the world works. Okay. So the thinking that you're doing at level three, you're doing a lot of imagining, imagining something new, or taking the information that you learned and putting it into a totally new situation. And you're using all the stuff you learned. So let's go back to our Minecraft idea. When we first started learning Minecraft, I just know to know what the buttons do and what is coal and what are the hearts at the bottom. Okay. Then I started to go like, oh, this is how you make a furnace. This is how you make armor. This is what coal does versus what a diamond does. This is what how you use a village to get more emeralds. Okay. Up here, you're doing level three. Now you're playing stuff like, how am I going to make an automatic hay farm? How am I going to make pumpkins be produced on their own? How am I going to get the villagers to sell me things so I can get better armor and spells and things of that level? Again, you started here, you got into here, and then you're operating up here. Okay, top level players, top level Minecraft players are level three thinkers. Sometimes they go level two, but they spend most of their time at level two and level three. Same thing for soccer. We said you started soccer, you were learning like, what is a forward? What does the goalie do? How do you kick the ball? Then when you get into level two, how do you kick the ball so it curves towards the net? How does the goalie of the opposing team function when the ball's on the other side of the field? How should I play in the first half versus the second half? Then you get into level three. I'm going to use a strategy where the forwards are going to crash in and then the ball's going to get kicked to the corner and then that guy's going to center it in front of the net so that the forwards can hit it. That's high level thinking right there. Okay. Again, sometimes you're just worried about passing the ball to a teammate. Sometimes you're doing some high level strategy stuff. Two and three is where you spend most of the time when you play a soccer match. When you're playing a soccer match, I don't think you're on the field going, "What's a goalie again?" I don't think you're going to be on the field very long if that's the case. All right. So when you're thinking at level three, what kind of answers are you producing? Well, these are going to be long answers. These are going to be like 2 to 3 paragraphs. Or could be one written essay or one persuasive essay that your teacher is asking you to write. These are not short answers. If you're doing short answers, like one word answers, you're still operating at a level one and you need to start thinking at higher levels. Now, why should you care about any of this? How does this help you out? How is this going to make your life a little bit better? Here's the honest truth of it. Okay, take your highlighter here. So you're in school and we want to help you get better at school. Where do you think the questions on your tests in all of your classes come from? Are they level one questions? Are they level two questions? Or are they level three questions? Take a second and think that to yourself. Okay. Most of the questions you get on tests are going to be level two or level three questions. Even if they're multiple choice, they're not going to be basic questions. Most of the time, your teachers are asking you, how is this different than that? Can you explain how this works? Can you show me how this works? Processing questions. Or they're going to give you a totally new situation and they say, explain what you see going on in this. Here's a data chart. Explain what the data is telling you. This is what your teachers are asking you to do. So you're like, okay, great. Here's the problem. If I'm a student and I'm sitting in class and all I worry about is what is this and what is that, and I'm operating at level one all the time, then when I get to the test and they're asking level two and level three questions, I'm not going to do so good because my brain hasn't been thinking at that level. And for the first time, I'm like, I don't know. How do you answer that question? So, what we need you to all start doing is yes, you start at level one, but don't stop there. Keep going. Start challenging yourself with level two and level three questions. And your teachers, when they give you things to do in class and lessons and assignments to do and homework, that's going to be, they're going to start you at level one, but they're not going to stop there. They're going to start giving you harder stuff and higher level thinking stuff. And if you don't do that, if you don't think that way, this is when you walk in on a test day and you're like, oh my gosh, I don't know anything on the test. And then you start to say things like, I must not be a very good test taker. I must not be very good at math. No, it has nothing to do with that. It has to do with, are you exercising your brain at the right level? And that's what we want to make sure that you're doing. So we're going to do some activities here with your teacher in just a second, but I wanted to go over these three levels. These are the Costa's levels of thinking. And if there's anything you remember from this presentation, it's this. You start at level one, but you don't stop at level one. Keep pushing yourself to think higher level stuff. And then no matter what you do, whether it's welding or riding a dirt bike or doing jumps off of a ramp, you're going to get better at it because you're thinking at higher levels rather than just the basic stuff. Okay. With that, I wish you well. Thank you very much.